All right, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick laid out more of his case for President Trump's tariffs this morning. Take a listen.
We've got to realize this is a national security issue. I mean, we don't make medicine in this country anymore. We don't make ships. We don't have enough steel and aluminum to fight a battle, right? All our semiconductors are made overseas, so every button we press when we try to start our car or even use our microwave, these are all semiconductors. They're all made elsewhere. We've got to start to protect ourselves, and we've got to stop having all the countries of the world ripping us off. We have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, and the rest of the world has a surplus with us. They're earning our money, they're taking our money, and Donald Trump has seen this, and he's going to stop it. So it is going to be a big change.
All right, joining us right now is retired Admiral Adm Stav On Cnn. He is a CNN senior military analyst as well, and the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. And he's also a partner at a global investment firm, the Carlyle Group. Great to see you, Admiral.
Great to see you, Fred.
So do you agree with Commerce Secretary Lutnick that not producing and manufacturing in the U.S. is a national security threat, and that's why tariffs are important?
Well, I think we have some work to do here at home. And he mentioned ship construction, for example. You know, the Admiral's going to say this. We do build ships here. We build warships here. They're very good. We build commercial ships here. They are quite good. But our shipbuilding industries broadly do need help. But here's the problem. When you go at it, as we have thus far with these very broad tariffs, you're actually risking our national security. I'll give you three very quick examples. Number one, you just hit on it. If we have a recession, huge cost. If we have inflation and we have to provide subsidies to farmers, huge cost. All that will come at the expense of defense spending, for example. Number two, all of this undermines our alliances, notably with NATO and the European Union. It also drives people into the arms of China, who will offer pretty good trade terms while we're in the process of conducting this massive tariff carpet bombing. And then thirdly, look at Asia right now. A week ago, Fred, we saw Japan, South Korea, and wait for it, China talking about coordinating their responses to our tariffs. That's an alignment we don't want. We want to hold our allies firm. We want to build the case against our opponents like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So all of this is very concerning to me from a national security perspective.
So let's zero in on the European NATO alliances that you just spoke of. Have a listen to what the president of the EU said this week about retaliation against the newest tariffs.
We are already finalizing the first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel. And we're now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail.
So the U.S., already has a strained relationship with Europe and NATO allies. What more might this do now to what has always been a reliable relationship, but now kind of tenuous?
Yeah, you kind of feel that transatlantic bridge creaking a little bit under all this stress and strain. Look, I know that woman very well, the leader of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen. She's German, a PhD, and before she was in this job, she was the defense minister of Germany, the largest economy in Europe. She's extremely knowledgeable, and knowing her on a personal basis, she is very determined and very serious. And I think that comes across in her comments. What the Europeans could do, and this is yet another national security dimension, Fred, is they could go after U.S. services, U.S. technology, our big tech firms who provide services. Currently, there's no tariff on services. All of this conversation is about things we make and trade and grow. Services have been left out of this. We enjoy a very big surplus in services. That could be tariffed by the Europeans. And final thought, defense spending. The Europeans, if they believe we are unreliable and these tariffs come across to them as though we're trying to break up this alliance, they'll do their defense spending at home in Europe. That'll be yet another cost to our national security and our economy.
And then there's a whole nother level here, because economists, including JP Morgan, are predicting 60% chance of a U.S. recession. I mean, nobody wants to hear that, but we got to hear it to prepare. So would an economic recession impair the U.S.'s security preparedness?
Of course it would, in every dimension imaginable, but the most obvious one is our U.S. defense budget, which is quite large, appropriately so, given our responsibilities around the world, but it's a significant component of national spending. If we go into recession and we have to provide propping up various aspects of our own economy, to include subsidies for farmers, for example, which I would support, but all of that puts pressure on national defense. And final thought here, Fred, it's that combination of potential inflation, which will come as a result of these tariffs, almost undoubtedly, and that slower growth. That's called stagflation. That's what we really want to avoid as the year goes on. We're sailing into dangerous waters here.